Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another video. Today we are going to discuss something that is actually a little bit more serious, and so this video might have a little bit of more of a serious tone. Today we're going to be discussing the reaction, or actually the comments that Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen have recently on, I love that they're getting so much more press time, and we get to hear them talk about stuff with Star Wars because it's been like, 15 years that we haven't heard from them all that much. And now they're being asked, about the prequel trilogy hate and all that was surrounding that time and that era and the critics and the fans. And I feel like I want to react to it. I want to read you guys what they said, and then I also have my own things that I want to say too with my experiences because I grew up in that time. I was a kid. I was a kid back then. Now I meet the people who we made those films for, who were the kids of the time, he said. And our Star Wars films are their Star Wars films, in the way that Carrie, Alec, Mark, Harrison's films were ours. We're theirs. And that's beautiful that they were important to the kids who we made them for. It's just so nice to finally get that wave of positivity about them. Of course, it wasn't always that way, the article says. There was quite a bit of hate with The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, and the trilogy as a whole. I remember, we're going to keep reading. It's probably going to be a longer video, so thanks for tuning in. I remember when I was 9 years old, The Phantom Menace came out, and I loved it, man. I thought Jar Jar was funny. Anakin Skywalker's character in general just spoke so much to me, and from the get-go, he was my favorite character. It was like I was, in a weird way, watching myself on screen, minus the whole youngling thing and some of the other terrible things. His arc and just him not being understood and not really fitting in was always something that I really connected with that character. And so whenever people would, dog on him, Hayden Christensen or Jake Lloyd, I was always there to defend them. And George Lucas in general, I was always there to defend them. And that's one reason why today you guys see me defending them so much, is because, well, they also took me out of dark places. Just like Star Wars is so important for so many people, it was really important for me too. I know you guys just see me now, but you didn't see me for my entire life where I was a massive Star Wars fan, and how special it was to me. He says, I found it quite hard, said McGregor, for it to come out and get knocked so hard was personally quite difficult to deal with. And also, it was quite early in my career, which I think would have been really difficult for anybody. You're a new actor pretty much, and you've done some other films, other projects, and you get put into Star Wars, and it's like destroyed by a lot of people, including a lot of critics. And that reminds me, I remember this one in the making of book, I think it was, George was wearing this t-shirt, I think on the set for episode 2 or 3, and I think he was in, was it Tunisia or something? Anyways, he was in the desert. He just had a quote of a bad critique, a bad quote from, I forget who the publisher was. It was like, I don't know, it was one of those big ones. It was just ripping apart his movie on The Phantom Menace, and he just wore it on his shirt proudly. It's like, you just kind of get a sense of who George was, and then he just didn't really give a crap about what these critics said until it got to the point where the bullying was just, from the fans was so much, and I feel like he did a lot for the fans. And in the end, I remember him saying, he just didn't have fun making Star Wars anymore because he felt like he had to do it a certain way, and he couldn't experiment, he couldn't have fun with it, and he didn't like that process anymore. The whole idea was to be able to do whatever he wanted to do and experiment with different things. He didn't feel like he could do that. So I think that's partially one of the reasons he let it go. I know that he says he wanted to enjoy his life and, spend time with his family and his daughter. But he also did start the sequel trilogy. He was actually planning to finish the 7th episode of Star Wars and then sell Lucasfilm to Disney. However, of course, it turned out differently. Anyways, Ewan goes on to say, it was quite early in my career. I didn't really know how to deal with that. I'd been involved with things that just didn't make much of a ripple, but that's different from making something that makes a negative ripple. Equally, the young Darth Vader actor Hayden Christensen had something to say. When the films came out and the critics were very critical, of course, that was a difficult thing. Oh, should I do it in the... I know you guys got a kick out of it last time, so. When the films came out and the critics were very critical, of course, that was a difficult thing, said Christensen. Because you care so much about this thing that you've invested so much of yourself into. So, for sure, that's challenging. Now the pair get to revisit their roles in upcoming Kenobi series for Disney+. So I'm really happy that they get to see some of the love and appreciation now that, a lot of us kids had back then. I was 9 when The Phantom Menace came out. I was 12 when Attack of the Clones came out, 12 or 13. And I was 15 when Revenge of the Sith came out. And boy, was it a cool time for me and for Star Wars fans. It wasn't all like this. I know a lot of you who are maybe new to Star Wars, or maybe you weren't like as heavily into it as I was at that time. If you are my age, I'm turning 32 in like a couple weeks now. And back then, you know, I was part of a lot of forums, a lot of online Star Wars forums, some big ones, and I was extremely active on there. A lot of the appreciation was really with the hardcore fans. A lot of it was a lot of the hatred was with the hardcore fans too, but I feel like it wasn't like today. I wasn't surrounded by so much hatred for the prequel trilogy. Everyone that I was speaking with, which was hundreds and thousands of people online every day in different topics, different forums, were really, really praising Star Wars and the prequels. And some people even had their problems with it. But one thing back then was that people would kind of explain, you know, why they didn't like something. They wouldn't just say like, oh, I hated this. If you like the prequels, you're not a Star Wars fan. So I actually got something like that when I was a kid. I remember in high school there were a few kids and they were just dogging on the prequels. I think it was episode 2 that had just come out. I was 12 or 13 years old. It must have been grade 8. And I remember I was like, what are you talking about? This is like the perfect arc for It's basically the same crap I say today. I was saying like as a kid, whatever, 20 years ago, literally 20 years ago. I just remember they were like gatekeeping movie critiquing, and they were like, oh, you don't know movies, oh, you don't know acting, and I'm just like, ugh, whatever, man. Like, look, Hayden Christensen act a certain way for the role, and he was told and directed by George Lucas to act a certain way. That's just how it is, you know. Kelly Marie Tran, like, you know, as much as I don't like the sequels, I don't think any human, any actor should ever receive any amount of hate for their job, for just doing their best. I think that criticism needs to fall, and respectfully, on the writers and directors who mishandle these movies. Now, if that's George Lucas with the prequels, well, you can judge him for that, respectfully. If that's J.J. Abrams, Rian Johnson, you can judge him for that, respectfully, not including the time that I told him he sucks. I didn't attack him personally, I just said, dude, you suck. You're not original. You're not creative. And even George said about Force Awakens, it was essentially just a rehash of his films. You know, nothing was new. So I think as long as we remain respectful to one another as Star Wars fans, we can avoid things like this happening in the future to, you know, future actors, future people that want to work on Star Wars. I think it's totally acceptable to critique the story to hell and just rip it apart to shreds with actual backing it up and actually explaining why you feel a certain way. Why do you love it? You know, why do you dislike it? I think that's much more of a intelligent conversation and a mature conversation to have with one another than just, oh, it sucks, you're not a real Star Wars fan if you like it, or oh, it was amazing, you're just toxic because you don't like I think those are just such drony answers, you know, and they're gatekeeping on both sides. And I don't think Star Wars has any place for gatekeeping, because I think Star Wars is for everybody, and I think everybody has a right to like or dislike whatever they want. You may not agree with it, but that's okay. You don't have to. It's like saying every human on Earth has to like the same food and we got to eat the same exact thing. It's like, well, no, that's not realistic. So coming back full circle here, I'm really happy that they're getting love. I'm really happy that they're getting attention today. And I think this is really just the beginning. You know, this is just from the trailer. The amount of love that they're about to receive from the show and from future shows that they're going to be in. You know, we know Kenobi's going to be in Andor. We know he's going to be in, well, he might not be in Ahsoka, but we know he's going to be in Andor. We know Vader's going to be in Andor as well. We know Anakin is going to be in Ahsoka. Luke's probably going to be in Ahsoka too. I bet you Luke and Ahsoka and Anakin are going to show up and they're going to be speaking with each other, which would be pretty amazing. But I'm all for it. I'm all for protecting these people, these actors on all of Star Wars. You know, prequels to sequels. It doesn't matter. They're humans, they're people, and they're just doing their job. Now the story can suck. Like, that's fine. You know, the writers can suck. The directors can suck. They can lack vision. But beyond that, you know, that's where it stops. That's where it should end. Can't wait for them to see the amount of love that we're going to show them in just a few months when it does come out, and I'm sure they're going to feel a lot of it at Celebration and probably the other conventions that they've already been at. So another actor, 2 actors that really got it hard and didn't deserve it, of course, nobody deserves it, is Ahmed Best and Jake Lloyd. You know, they did a fantastic job portraying their characters, and you know, Jar Jar is really just the comedic relief for the prequels. He's the C-3PO version, kind of. So I don't think they deserved any of the hatred and the bullying that they got. I think fans can be mean. I think they can be not very sensitive and not really understanding that, you know, there is somebody else behind the screen or somebody else behind the movie or whatever, that they have feelings too. You know, they're not robots, they're humans. And I think it's very important to always remember that and to always just be respectful of one another, even if you didn't like something. That being said, I understand how passionate Star Wars fans are. I get it. You know, this is more than a movie. It's more than just a story. It's like a religion. It's a belief system. It's something that's intertwined so deeply with the fabric of our beings, with so many of us. For some of you, it might just be, you know, Baby Yoda's cute, and that's fine. That's great. You know, I'm happy you're a Star Wars fan. But for a lot of us, it's much more than that. It really means something. So we just have to remember to not take things so personally if someone doesn't validate your thoughts and your opinions on Star Wars, which in turn doesn't invalidate your actual thoughts and opinions on Star Wars. And I think that's something that we need to remember, is that if someone doesn't like something or like something, it doesn't invalidate you. I think things will be handled a lot more gracefully if we remember this, and a lot more politely and respectfully. So that's all I have to say about this. I'm happy that they're getting a lot of love, and can't wait for them to see the amount of love that they're going to get in just a little bit. So hope you all have a great day. Thanks for tuning in for this video and my thoughts. Stay tuned for the next one. And until then, remember, the Force will be with you always.